John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail.
Hey, everybody, welcome. It's so great to have you be part of the show. We got a great show for you today. How often have you heard the term marvelously? I mean, the word marvel, by the way, is one of the most searched words we have these days for a lot of reasons. But we've also heard the term, oh my gosh, marvelously. It's such a powerful word. But do you understand the energy, the vibration, and the meaning behind it? What happens if you knew there was somebody out there that could talk to you, work with you each and every day about how living marvelously will give you a new lease on life and will help you thrive? Living marvelously is let's just call it, the genius behind it is Laurie Jonas. And Laurie, let me just tell you a little bit about Laurie. You know, there are many things that you'll hear today in the show. You'll hear her story. You'll hear how she got here. But the one thing that we all acknowledge, that whether you understand the heart behind this, you'll hear the dedication behind this. You know, this is somebody that looked at a life hardship and turn that around into ways to help the rest of us. And this is what I love about what I do. I get to have conversations with some of the most inspiring people. But then when you take something that is as gut-wrenching as you'll hear today, and you turn it into ways that you can help other people create infinite possibilities, that's where the magic starts. Today, I want to introduce you to somebody that has done all that and understands what it means to step into the world of living marvelously, but also to do it despite the challenges that life throws your way. Laurie, it's great to have you. Welcome. Finally, yay.
I know. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I want to start out. I want to talk about what I alluded to before we get into the possibilities. You know, I've been doing this for about 20 years, and the questions that I ask people have not changed. You know, I just barely scratched the surface introducing you. And there's so much more I could say. But the real question is, given all of that, I want to know what the challenges and obstacles are that you had to overcome to bring you to this very moment and to enable you and empower you to create living marvelously.
Yeah. So it all started back when my mom's name was Marvel. So that's where it all starts from. And back in 2000, early 2000s, she had cancer, and it came back after 5 years, and we were all taking care of her, and we noticed, that towards the end of her life, she really wasn't living her life the way I would hope she would. And so that was my first challenge, was losing her back in 2002 and trying to decide how I wasn't going to step in that same footprints and try to do something different with my life. And I was still raising kids, so it took a while. But I think the biggest challenges that I've really overcome are discovering that I have my own life. Like, we are all such unique individuals, and we are all here to do different things. We are not here to live with the expectations of what others put upon us. We can be ourselves. And that took a long time for me to discover. gotten into a little bit of a human design, astrology, and I've had some readings, and I'm learning so much about myself that I'm like, oh my gosh, I just wish I would have known that a long time ago.
Right.
And I could just be living so much freer. And so those are some of the struggles I've been through. So,
I just got off a call with my wellness and well-being coach, Mary Jane Mack. And wouldn't you know it, we were talking exactly about this. And you get to the point, and I want to ask you about this because it is about responsibility. You see, people don't connect this dot, and I would love for you to expand on it. Sometimes when we step back from the people around us and we stop worrying, oh, I don't know if I do this, are they going to be mad at me? Am I going to be able to make her happy if I do this? If I leave, if I go on vacation, whatever that is, that goes on up here.
Mm-hmm.
And what we don't realize is that is not taking responsibility for our own lives. That is taking responsibility for everybody else's life. And I wanted to ask you, one of the things you talk about is how to take responsibility. And let's talk for a minute about this and how this is not a selfish act, right? It's not selfish, right?
It's not, no.
It is the act that carves the pathway for everybody's freedom, isn't it?
Absolutely. I just was talking to somebody recently too, who gives of himself so much to other people, that he lives his life for other people to feel good. And I had to remind him, but what about you? Like, when are you going to feel good? So, and when you can take that responsibility to take care of yourself and to do the things that make you happy, you become such a better person. And it's so much easier to share that than with others. Yeah. It's so much easier to do things that will make others feel good because you're doing it from a place of love and a place of self-respect and a place of, this is what we're all meant to do. Yeah. So, and the responsibility part really comes in, how are you living? Like, how do you think about yourself? What are the words you're saying? What are the thoughts you are thinking? What are all these things that you are creating in your life? That's your responsibility. If you're not liking something that is going on in your life, you got to change your perspective. You got to think different thoughts. You got to think, say different words. There's so much that you can do that we can take off of others to do for us to, make your life better, happier.
Yeah. One of the things that are takeaway, I want to ask you about this too, is I want to say this to all of you. I want to look you right in the eye and I want to say this to you. I have a lot of compassion and empathy if everything we're saying you relate to about yourself. Here's why. Please be kind and gentle to yourself. Because if you decide to take this journey, maybe you want to work with Laurie. Maybe this is somebody that can help you. But I will tell you this, you might be confused. You may be making your first decision. Let me throw something simple out, Laurie, and help us with this, because I know you must have been through this. I know I've been through it. But maybe you're out on your own. And instead of asking, honey, where do you want to go to dinner? Hey, where do you want to go to dinner? Yeah. The reason you ask is because you've never been able to choose for yourself. You're not able to decide, what do I want for dinner for me? That is not unusual. Don't beat yourself up. But Laurie, we have to start simply. And don't you find that something like that could be so gut-wrenching for people, right?
Yeah. And I think it all comes, I think you got to start even further back, like not even just with, making sure that your voice is being heard. But in order for your voice to be heard, you have to know what you want. You got to start with what
you got to know what you want.
Yes.
Right.
You got to know what you want your life to look like. You got to know what you want your life to include. You got to know what you want to do. You got to know what you want to feel. So you got to start there. And then when you have some kind of a vision for yourself, then some of those decisions just become a lot easier, right? Like maybe you don't really care where you go to dinner, but
Right.
but maybe it's like, oh, you know what? I want to feel good tomorrow. So let's do something healthy. Or
Right.
I'm really in the mood to celebrate. Let's go to the bar and have a burger and a beer,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But when you know, like how you want to feel and how you want to, just be in your life, it makes some of those decisions easier. And you discover your voice. You discover that you do have a say, and you discover that, this is my life to live. So I'm going to do that.
Mm. It must have been having lost so many people in my life, really, honestly. I was at one point in my life, Laurie, I'm telling you, I think it was 1987, right? 1997, excuse me, 1997. And I lost my spiritual mentor very suddenly on a trip I was supposed to be on. But I had watched myself what happened the years before, lost my mom, my stepmom, my sisters. I mean, I watched this. And I thought I was cursed at one point. I thought, wait a minute. I didn't make sense of that. And emotionally, it was overwhelming. What you went through with your mom, of course, gave you some incredible lessons.
Mm-hmm.
But along the way, we have to go through the pain of events in life like that. What did you discover along that journey?
Oh, I discovered a lot. I discovered all of the blessings. I remembered the blessings that she brought into so many people's lives. I discovered how she was holding herself back, and I didn't want to do that. I discovered some of the, like when at her funeral, people would say she was the first person to welcome them into the city, and she was just so caring, and there was just an overwhelming response. And I wanted to really cherish that. It's like, gosh, when you're so close to someone, you don't see that, and
Oh,
so that was beautiful. But I've got some friends going through some really tough experiences right now, losing people. And, my mom was 66, and some of my friends have lost some people pretty young, and it's hard. And I don't want to put light on any of this, that it's easy to get through, because it's not, and you have to do it in your own way. But it can be a really great teaching, learning experience to really think about, what did they bring to your life? What did they bring to other people's lives? And how can we then honor them by continuing some of that, and teaching others? Like maybe it's something like with my mom, she turned to alcohol. And so I wanted to to kind of bring that up with my own family. Let's talk about that.
yeah. We're going to talk about this more when we come back, because you absolutely cannot be out in the world coaching people on living marvelously unless you have been through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Believe me, I know I can't be the owner of the Transformation Network without having seen it all. But even though we have seen it all, what is it like, especially when you're transitioning in another stage of your life? What should we be paying attention to? And by the way, what if this was your best chapter ever? What if this moment we're talking to you right now about, if you could hold the space until we come back from break, just hold it, that what we're about to share with you, you will decide is going to be the best ever of your life. Because Laurie Jonas is in the house. Livingmarvelously.com is the website. When we come back, we're going to talk about how to get there. And we're not undermining anything you've been through. Both of us clearly understand not exactly what it's like for you, but our own experiences of what it's like. When we come back, let's see if we can help you raise up. Let's take a short break. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. You're listening to the Dr. Pat Show. I'm introducing you to Laurie Jonas, who, by the way, is the host of our own show you're going to be seeing here soon, Living Marvelously. And today what we're talking about is, look, in the world that I live in, the world of optimism, there are many of you that don't realize that you can still be optimistically centric and still go through all of the pain, the agony, whatever that is, whether it's losing a table tennis match or a loved one, you still go through the emotions. The difference between some of us is that we've been groomed, and I particularly have been trained by two moms that were extremely optimistic about life. And yet these things that transfer to you, they stay with you, but even more importantly, they don't allow you to play small. They don't allow you not to share them with others. That's why we're here today. Laurie, before we talk more about what this means to live marvelously and what each of the moments mean, you take the story that you shared, story about your mom, your journey, what you did to really raise up family members, to talk about the things that families don't want to talk about. But now what you've done is you've created your own coaching platform, livingmarvelously.com. And now what you're doing is helping people, especially people that are going through that midlife point and saying, what the heck? When did I turn 40, right? Tell us a little bit about how those experiences helped you sculpt, your life's practices, your coaching practices, and what you do to help others.
Sure. So in my coaching, the biggest thing for me and what I find with a lot of women in midlife is that they've gotten to a place where they're done taking care of people. They're maybe empty nesters, or they had a career and they've finished their career, they're retiring, and they kind of are lost. They're like, now what? Now what am I supposed to do with my life? And I've even talked to a few people who have said, I don't even know what brings me joy anymore. I've been living on autopilot for so long. I don't even know what I want. So for me, the key is, and I was probably that way too. I worked for a company for 10 years and I loved it, but I got to a point where I was like, I need something different. And so I started living marvelously. Well, what's funny about that is now I've been doing Living Marvelously for over 5 years. I went back to that company because I discovered that I wanted both, and I can have both because that's what, that's the beauty of life. You get to decide what you want. So I discovered what brings me joy. And I think that's really important. And I think that's the biggest thing that I can help women with is to, what you just talked about. You briefly mentioned how you were brought up in a positive culture. Not everybody is. And so they have these beliefs that they have learned for so long, as they grew up, that they're stuck with, and they just believe that it's true. For example, they may believe that they have to work super hard for success or they're not going to get it. So they're always going. Well, what if you just took a step back and looked at it differently and you decide, you know what? I'm sick of working so hard. I want to do something different. And so you have to let go of that belief that maybe your father or your mother gave it to you, or you're just, you're mimicking what they've done in their life. You could go on and on about limiting beliefs, and I will do a whole show on limiting beliefs because it's so important and there's so many, but, I think so through my coaching, I think that's the biggest number one thing is let's figure out what makes you happy. And then what we have to do is we have to get you there. We have to take steps to get there.
I love that we're talking about this. And, here's the thing I love. Whenever I say I grew up in an optimistic home, I want people to be really clear. It doesn't mean that you don't come from a home where there are depressed people. There are like Debbie Downers, like my dad was Daddy Downer. Right. Mama number 2 was like, listen, this is a woman, first child 12, second child 13. And she was like, look, honey, if I can have my child at 12 and 13, I can do anything in life. And she had the Southern jaw, and that's the way she would talk about it. And that's what she inspired in us. No matter where we were, no matter what we did, perseverance was her number one ticket. If you could not persevere, she had zero tolerance for giving up. So on the one hand, there was this optimistic view. On the other hand, there was this pit bull of a mom that would not let you give up. And somehow it worked. But when you're living marvelously, you have to be able to live with feet in multiple worlds, don't you?
Yeah.
Right? Some days you might get a cranky client call.
Mm-hmm.
Other days you may not. But let's talk about what you said. You know, I joke a little bit about something I love. Now, I love my best friend. By far, number one priority. Nothing comes. Linda is number one. I don't care what I'm doing, or I'm, you know, like, I don't know if I'm in the Caribbean somewhere. Number one. And people say to me, but what do you do for fun? I get to ask that question. And I try to explain to them that what I do for a living is fun. And they're like, no, that doesn't count. Okay. When I finally could admit that I love playing ping pong, you could just hear a room roar. Now, let me just ask you about this, because even though it's like table tennis, do you know how hard it was for me to say that and then give myself permission in a busy day, in a busy night, at strange hours to go play? You see, isn't that the peace, though, that you help people with? It's not enough to say, I love this, or to say, I love my best friend, and then when she's not well, don't come. Right? How do you help people take the love and make the love into the love boat? You see?
Right. So there, you have to take, you can dream all you want. You can come up with this fantasy of what your life, you want your life to look like. You know, maybe it's, you know, you dream, I want to live on a beach and I want to be in warm weather all the time. I want, you know, I want that, you know, that's what I want, but I know that I can't have that right now. So it's figuring out what makes you happy and what are those little tiny baby steps that can get you there. I had a client once who was, their house was cluttered. And she kept saying, I need to get some organization skills. I would be so happy if my house was clean. And then the more we talked about it, she really discovered that it was okay that her house was cluttered. Her husband didn't mind. They were able to find things. They had to sort of let go of all of that, like, shoulds of what a house should look like, and discover that, you know what, it's okay. I'm good where I'm at. Mm-hmm. And I think also there's, you have to change perspective. So what makes you happy? And when I use the word happy, I think a lot of people think it's sort of like, you know, tutti frutti, like, you know, they don't really, right. Yeah, but it truly is what brings you joy. It's joy. It's joy. And whatever, every single person has something different. They have something different that brings them joy. And that's what makes this universe so wonderful and special, is because we all have different things that bring us joy that we can share. But you have to take baby steps in order to get to that life. So in my book, we hadn't really talked about it yet, but it's the 5 L's of living marvelously. Yep. And I added a 6th L because I didn't talk about the launch part. The launch part is really discovering what that is. What do you want it to look like? And then you start letting go of some of those limiting beliefs, some of those comparisons, some of those fears. And then you start loving yourself. And then you start really living your life. Then you start learning everything you need to learn in order to get there. And then you leap into this beautiful, fun, enjoyable, easy lifestyle.
Yeah.
And it,
you know, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and some people might be saying that sounds too good to be true, right? That's you can never get there, but you can.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that when we come back from break, because it's not too good to be true. You know, I don't come from the easiest of childhoods. I started to talk about it recently in the past several years, but prior to that, probably 12, 13 years doing this, never mentioned it. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Not confident in myself, not really understand the dynamic of coming from a completely alcoholic family, being brought into this world by an alcoholic mom, an addicted mom, and then finding out that we had so many secrets that I accidentally, through some ancestry thing that my friend did, found out that my grandfather was born in Brazil, not Italy. And, so you hesitate. But once you can look at yourself without guilt or without shame, and that's the part that we're going to talk about when we come back. We're going to talk about the else, but we're going to talk about, what can we do to make you number one priority? Now, I'm here in New Jersey. I'll be going back home mid-month. And every time I come in here and I do a show or I talk to clients, the little dog is here. The doggy's mommy is not here most of the days, but the little Sadie dog is here. And I don't know if you've noticed me turn my head every once in a while to look, because that level of peace and serenity. And by the way, this dog can go into any room she wants. She does not have to sit 3 feet from me doing the show. And like, Emily, don't go crazy right now, okay? Don't go crazy right now. Okay. But can you see the little dog?
Yeah, so sweet.
You see that? The question I want to leave everybody with, would you like that much peace in your heart? Would you like that right there, going on right there with me blabbing here? She can hear the whole thing. Would you like that much peace? We're going to take a short break. When we come back, more with Laurie Jonas, but livingmarvelously.com. When we come back, how do you have that peace? By making yourself a number one ticket. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Again, I want to introduce you to Laurie Jonas, and she is the host of Living Marvelously. You're going to hear much more from her as she hosts her own live streaming TV and audio, video, podcasting show with us on Transformation Network, Transformation Talk Radio, and the Women's Channel, and so much more. But before you go anywhere, livingmarvelously.com is the website. When you get there, please take a look. She's got an amazing free resource library, and you can download a Dream Life ebook. There's so much here. We're going to talk about the book in a minute, but there's more here to help you get ready to do what we're about to talk with you about. And there are other ways to engage with Laurie. I just want to tell you that. Product, services, you can see what she does. Life and spiritual coaching, infinite possibilities and abundance coaching. Now is the time to get that revved up, people. I'm just saying, now is the time to start looking at that. Here we sit, we're rolling into the holidays and then the new year. The other thing is, if you've not heard of human design, you'll hear about more from Laurie on this. And then the 5 L's of living marvelously book, but now I think there's 6. So there's so much here. But the most important thing that I want to drive home today is the idea of how to find clarity in all of this and how to know how to put yourself number one. All right, let's talk about this. You have more tools than I have time in this show to go over. If people want to work with you, they can go to your website, schedule time with you, connect with you, because as we're moving forward, 2024 is really the year for this. 2024 is the year of I call it inner empowerment. You know, it is that thing that allows you to say, I am number one, but I also care for Tom and Mary and little Bobby and Sadie, the dog, but I'm going to get my nails done. Okay. And you know how hard that is? Talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, it's hard because we are too worried about what other people think. And what's scary about that is you're worried about what other people think, and then that other person's worried about what other people think, and that person's worried about so everybody's worried about what everybody else is thinking. But in reality, nobody's thinking about you. They're too worried about themselves. So we need to let that go. That's something that it took me, and believe me, it took me a long time.
Yeah.
Well, it still comes up every once in a while. I can't say I'm free from it, but that comparison is just so, and I fear for the younger generation because they grew up with that comparison with the social media and looking at the people out influencers or whatever. They're like, oh, I want to be like them. It's like, oh gosh, I just really want you to take a step back and just be you, because you are here. You were born into this world, a beautiful creation. And that's all you have to do. That's all you have to be. There's nobody else that you need to be but yourself. And if you enjoy getting your nails done once a week, you need to go do that. If you enjoy helping other people, and that's what brings you joy, you should go do that. But it doesn't need to be an expectation of you. If you enjoy, maybe you just enjoy sitting home and reading, that's okay. Everybody, because you're learning something that maybe you can share with somebody at some point. I just feel like why it's so important to know what makes you happy and what brings you joy is because that's what you're meant to be sharing with the world. Yeah. And everybody needs to do that so that the world can spin correctly or whatever.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely right. I have a new thing that I love to do now in between things. And sometimes I do it a little bit longer. I mean, some of the stuff on television I'm not really interested in watching, and I'm not a game player per se, like what do you call it, game player. But I will tell you, I have gotten hooked on this game. And I realized, why did I get hooked on this game? Okay, but I want to talk about this and I want you to help people.
Okay.
So I got this game that's called Block Blast Adventure Master, and I do the adventure thing. And it's like a little puzzle thing. Like, see that? You got to move the things around, because I love that. My brain, I'm a little learning different. So a game like this is good for me. But I feel all I need is somebody to make a comment to me, especially a comment that hits a part of who I am already. And all you need to say to me, you're addicted to this. And what happens to me? I get deflated. I feel guilty. Why? Because addiction is in my journey, in my family's journey. So I had to come to the place where I said to myself, okay, so what? If every time I get a break, I go to pick this up, so what? Let's talk about how to create a so what. Not a careless one, everybody, but the idea of having a so what mentality sometimes in the world to block out all of this stuff that would keep you from living marvelously. Right?
Yeah.
Maybe so what's a little harsh. Come up with your own term.
No, I like it. I think that's okay, because if you think about the person who told you you're addicted to that is based on their beliefs, right? They believe that if you pick up a game every time you have a break, you're addicted to something. That doesn't mean you have to believe that. That's their belief. So we need to focus on our own beliefs. And if you doing that makes you feel good, you need to continue to do that. I have almost exactly same thing happened to me. I like to play little games when I have breaks too on my phone, and I always kind of like hide it when people come around. They're like, oh, I'm not really playing a game, right? But it's sort of a release. It's okay, I can just sit here and just kind of veg out and release all the thinking you do all day long. And I just need a few moments. And what does it do for you? It maybe replenishes your energy. And so you're ready to go again when you're done with that little release you just had, or that little piece of joy you just created and brought your energy up again. So that's interesting, is that everybody has their own thing. And I really encourage everybody to stop worrying about what other people's things are and only focus on yours. Because, think about it. You don't want people coming up to you and saying, you shouldn't be doing that, or that's bad for you, or, whatever it is. So don't do it to anybody else. We have to create a different culture where it's okay to be different. We
have to create a different culture. Once upon a time, there was a book that people make fun of now. I don't make fun of it because it was a pivotal book for me. I'm okay, you're okay. I don't even remember the author of that book, but it was like, decades ago. Remember that book? It's literally called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And that was that plus the 7 Habits, plus the 4 Agreements, the hardest books for people to actually read and do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that I'm okay and you're okay, and you can go on with your life in the way you choose, and I could go on with mine. What if we could enter that space that Rumi talks about it, beyond a field of right or wrong? I'll meet you there. You see, that's what we're talking about. Living marvelously frees us from the shackles of comparison, low self-esteem, judgment of self, of others, attachment to the past that we cannot change. And if we can really follow that pathway, we don't have to work at putting ourselves at number 1. We will just be doing it by the choices we make, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think living in the moment, just living in what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And choosing for yourself how you want that to feel. So not worrying about your past, as you just said, not living in your past, not worrying about your future.
Yeah.
Because, the future, you don't know. It's an unknown. You can't worry about it. It's whatever you're worrying about may not happen. The past has already happened. So let's learn from that. What can you learn from that? What can you move into this moment that now I know better, or now I know differently? So it's really living in the moment. And it's also one thing I love about human design is, without going into it, if you know anything about it, there's like 5 different types. And
yes.
And what's so beautiful about it is I can say, you know what, I'm a generator, and I can really appreciate that about myself. And then when I do readings for other people, I can say, you're a manifester, which is way different than me, but I love that about you. And I love how you react and how you serve the world. And that's what I think is so beautiful, is to see how everybody has their place, and let's respect that and let them be where they are.
Yeah, I remember doing the human design, and then I did it again recently. And sometimes for some people, maybe like for me, it's not as clear. There are combinations of manifestor, generator, like that. But when you start to read about it, you have this understanding. And I want to talk to you about that when we come back from break, because part of this is getting to know ourselves, but it's deeper than that. It's about understanding who we are authentically in the world and accepting ourselves in today's moment. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you are active alcoholic or drug user. If you can just accept where you are, just right there, this is where we're going to go, not where you were or where you want to go. But if you're that person that's been struggling to write that book and you haven't been able to write it, or maybe it's just get through the day. Maybe you're like me, you work 3 jobs just to pay the rent at one point in time. Or maybe you have children, you're trying to manage them. Maybe you're in an abusive relationship. Maybe you're at the top of the world. You've had the best year ever. When we come back, do you know which parts of any of that are authentically you? Let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Laurie Jonas, livingmarvelously.com. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. I want to tell you, Living Marvelously with the most amazing Laurie Jonas, who is my very special guest today, right here on the Dr. Pat Show, unleashing the marvelous potential in every woman. This show is coming up, begins December 14th, Unleashing the Marvelous Potential in Every Woman. You're going to hear a lot more about it. Great conversation, tips, interviews. She'll take you through some of the things she's created along the way. And the idea is, let's get clear. Let's get clear on what your inner strength is. What about your inner purpose? What about the vision that you have? And this is somebody that knows how to do it, what to do. And like she said before, yeah, you can have it all. You can go back to that job and still have an entrepreneurial spirit. Laurie, thank you so much for this. I want to just touch upon this. I know you're going to do a lot of shows on this, but I really want to talk about this thing that we call the authentic self. And the reason I want to talk about it, because I think there's a misunderstanding about it. Here's what I think the misunderstanding. I think it's so hard to grasp the whole enchilada of authentic self. Like it's like hard. We're complex. But what if we could focus on one part of ourselves and say, you know what, everybody, you see me doing this show, like right here, this is me. Like when I'm not on the show, I'm over here. I'm the same. This is me. Laurie, you've been on calls with me, right? This is me. I'm a little bit more fun, but I can be fun doing shows. But I know this is me. You see, I know this part of me is me. I feel it. I feel calm. I feel peaceful in this role. Never planned to do it. And then there are other parts of me. When you see me hitting a table tennis ball, my face changes. I get the game face on. That's still me. So how can we help people at least tap into one aspect of who they are in their authentic selves?
Yeah, I love that. So like a lot of people, when building up to this today, to this show, when they would hear about it, they'd be like, oh my gosh, aren't you nervous? I'm like, no, I'm not. This is authentically me. This is what I love to do. I love to learn about stuff, and then I love to share it. And especially in this kind of a format where I'm getting asked questions, oh, I could just talk forever. I just love it. But that's me. That's my authentic self, where the people who are asking would be like, oh gosh, keep me away. I don't want to be anywhere near a microphone or in front of people. And that's okay, right? We've already talked about that's okay. You have to be yourself. But I think the biggest thing is to just notice and be aware. When are you feeling the best? When are you feeling the pure joy in your life? Notice what you're doing. So I'd say this a lot. I think the number one step in really figuring out who you are is to just be aware. So let's say you're working, you're at your job, and you just kind of get lost in your job. You're like, oh my God, it's already 5 o'clock. I've just been, at that time just flew by. Maybe that's a piece of you that is authentic. That's authentically you to be doing what you are doing at your job. Then there's going to be a time you're going to go home and you're trying to make supper and you're fumbling around the kitchen and you're frustrated and it's not working. Maybe you're not a cook, right? So just to be aware, and it's okay. Like, to be authentically you is just to discover the pieces of yourself that make you feel good. Yeah. It's all about how you feel.
Yeah.
And if you're not feeling good, then you got to figure out if you need to continue doing that.
Yeah. I love that we're talking about this. And there's one of the things in particular that I love about this is, and I think this has been a huge misconception, but also misgiving, especially in the New Thought movement, as it once was called. And that is this journey for the authentic self has got to be where you eat the whole pie. Like if you can't identify all of you, then there's something wrong with you. And I don't believe that, because getting to be who I am today took a lot of years to get here, right? And there are parts of me that I know I love, that there are people around me that don't love so much, right? I can be extremely visionary, creative, and impulsive with ideas to the point where I could stop our production with my next best idea. But I'm aware of that now, and I don't do that to the team. There are parts of me that love motorcycle riding. My first vehicle was a motorcycle. I love it. But people that are close to me, every time I bring up the Harley or the motorcycle that I'm going to get or ride, they literally have a breakdown. Now, how do we find the parts of ourselves that are not negotiable? Because there's some things not negotiable, right? Getting a motorcycle, I understand it's dangerous. Maybe I'll wait for my next life, right? Giving up table tennis, that is not negotiable.
Oh, that's fine. I think it's just, you have to discover that. You have to decide. You have to decide if something that you are doing makes other people in your life uncomfortable, not feel good. You have to decide if you are going to do anything about that. So maybe you're like, you know what, you guys, I just need to have this conversation with you. I know this makes you uncomfortable, but it really makes me happy. I would really like to continue doing it. Or you say, you know what, I respect that you guys care for me and you're worried about me and that I need to be safe. So I will, let's talk about how I can pull back from doing that thing. Yeah. I think it's a conversation, right?
It is a conversation.
And it's still, because it's still you. It's still, if that's a piece of you that you really enjoy, don't just give it up because somebody doesn't like it. Let's figure out how to make it work. Yeah. And I think, what I would say, it took me a lot of years as well to figure out where I am today, to figure out what really truly makes me happy. And I would say to some, the younger generations is to just start small. Just,
That's it.
You don't have to figure it all out. Like if you really, you have to work a 9 to 5 in order to pay the bills, but you really like drawing. Maybe after work, you come home and you just take 20 minutes to just lose yourself in some art. Just start small to recognize those pieces that you really love so that you don't, when you get to be, 40, 45, you're an empty nester, you're not lost. You've already, you've been finding things that you can take with you.
Yeah. I love that advice. And, part of also what you do, and I want to mention it, is you have people journal. You have this Living Marvelously journal where there's no harm in writing about this. You don't have to share it. And I by the way, I don't know what you recommend, but I recommend do not share your journal.
Yeah.
What you put in your journal has to percolate. It has to breathe. And isn't that something they could do? Just start small. Write down, it's not even a wish list. It's a marvelous list. It's your living marvelously list. If you could define that, what would you put on it?
Yeah, I thank you for bringing that up, because journaling is a huge piece of what I share with others and I am a huge advocate of journaling. I think it brings clarity. It takes stuff running around in your head out and puts it on paper so that you can find some organization, some clarity around what has been bothering you, or maybe you're trying to solve a problem or whatever it is. That's what journaling can do for you. It also is just again, like I said, maybe drawing is just a release. It's just a way to the other piece we really haven't talked about is sort of your intuition. So I think for me, journaling is listening to your higher self. It's just putting pen to paper and saying, what do I need to know? And just sort of start writing. So I have a lot of stuff on my website about journaling, and I would, encourage anybody to go look at that, because it's an integral part of figuring out some clarity in your life.
Yeah. I want to thank you so much for this. I do have one last question, and I'm so looking forward to the show. Please tell people a little bit about it. And what's your personal message? What do you want to leave us with here today, Laurie? Thank you so much. I know we covered a lot, but it really is in the spirit of living marvelously and really living in a state of power for oneself. What would you like to leave us with today?
Oh, I think my biggest message, even in my book and around, is that life is just way too short to not do what makes you happy. Life is too short to not be sharing the gifts that you were born to share. to at least figure it out. Life is too short to not be, a beautiful vision piece of God in the universe. So go out there and be who you are. That's my whole unleash that potential.
I love it. For more information, I want to just make sure y'all know, go to livingmarvelously.com. Take a look at it, Living Marvelous. The show is coming up. I'm really excited about that. You're going to have more fun. You're going to help a lot of people. As we go into 2024, this is the energy. I don't care what astrologer you talk with. Everybody's got their own views, spiritual people, logical people, even politicians talking about 2024, but we have to get ready for it, don't we?
Yes.
I love it. Laurie, thank you so much. Hey, everybody, I'm Dr. Pat, and please just start like this. I am living marvelously. Just say it. Start there, and then call Laurie for how to get there. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.